One thing that's happening with artificial intelligence is it's democratizing creation. All writing and art, everything's just getting fed into it. If you make something and you share it, it's going to be used to train AI models. And in that way, it's profoundly democratizing creation and authorship in a way that people are kind of scrambling to deal with or to figure out how we're going to deal with. We keep hearing the term, it's decentralized. Pluto is like covert power, and the term decentralization is used to inure you to things like the idea of blockchain. Blockchain can absolutely be decentralized, but it can also be very, very centralized. It can be decentralized to the extent that there's not a visible person or entity pulling the strings. The term decentralization is being used to promote not Pluto ideals, to promote the collective governing itself, when in fact, covertly, everything is centralized. Although that's a potential of blockchain. Another potential of blockchain is putting everything, logging everything on a permanent ledger forever, and then you can be compelled to share that, or nothing you do hasn't been recorded, especially in the metaverse where every interaction is some sort of transaction. It doesn't necessarily mean that currency changes hands, but every time you talk to someone, every time you pick up a digital object, or your eyes track to look at something, or you click on something, all of those are transactions, and all of those things will be logged on the blockchain. On Thursday, the Justice Department named its first chief AI officer. He is a Princeton law professor and a technology law researcher. He's an Aquarius 2 native, ruled by Saturn and Uranus in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter in Pisces, with Mercury in Pisces. His main role will be to hire a team of experts that focus on technology policy and cybersecurity. Last week, Reddit said that it was going to sign over its content, all of its content, to train AI models. So anything you've ever said on Reddit is getting fed into the machine. I bet you didn't know that in 2007 when you were writing sexy stories. And this week, Reddit has said that it has entered an AI content licensing deal with Google. So all of it's not only getting fed into an AI, it's getting fed into Google. Reddit is also doing an IPO. They're going public. An unusual part of their offering is that they're offering initial stocks to 75,000 of its most loyal active users. And you might say, I thought Reddit was owned by Condé Nast, but they're actually an independent subsidiary of Condé Nast's parent company, Advanced Publications. AT&T's networks were down for 11 hours for US customers, and there's currently, as of this recording, no indication that it was a cyber attack, according to AT&T. But the period of downtime is being investigated by the FCC, Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau. I didn't know that was a thing. Mercury is conjoining Saturn this week, and during the Mercury retrograde this past winter, over the holidays, I mentioned something having to do with the Mercury-Saturn signature and layoffs. And with that cycle closing out, I just want to mention all the layoffs. So Microsoft, UPS, Mozilla, Paramount, Amazon, JPL, Spotify, Instacart, and Google are some of the high-profile companies that have performed mass layoffs. And the biggest of these companies are performing thousands or in Google's case, tens of thousands of layoffs. So we are experiencing a mass dispossession. And if you haven't already watched the Alison McDowell blockchain video that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I'll link it below. Also this week, ChatGPT lost its damn mind. Google has launched 2 new open large language models named Gemma 2B and Gemma 7B, so twins. 2 people who used to work for Google's DeepMind have unveiled their universal biology AI model, and it will connect the different scales of biology with generative AI. It's trained on multimodal patient data sourced from leading academic hospitals worldwide, which makes it different from other models that are trained solely on public data. AI-powered neurotech startup Fierce Biotech says that they're pioneering quote-unquote electric medicine, and their product is a wearable technology that quote-unquote augments sleep, attention, and ultimately the human experience. Neuralink reported that their first human patient is able to control a mouse with their brain. And Mark Zuckerberg reports that Meta will ship in the next few years a neural wristband for spatial computing input, which uses electromyography for potentially, quote unquote, almost infinite control over machines, which we're going to need. Also, he did a weird interview for Morning Brew. In Saturn and Pisces news, fingerprints can apparently now be recreated from the sounds made when swiping on a touchscreen. Vietnam is going to collect voluntary iris scans and other biometrics for their ID card program. Stable Diffusion 3 is out in limited invitation-only release. The private company that landed on the moon on Thursday is called Intuitive Machines. Can you see my calendar? My other project is called Beauty Grease. It's like rebellious, extreme skincare. So extreme that you don't use products, basically. Monday's not boring. It starts out with a shift in tone, with the moon moving into Libra early in the morning. And Mars is applying to a square with Jupiter all day long. It goes exact around midnight Pacific time. So we have the unusual harshness of Mars in Aquarius. There's like, I think of like a relentless precision and a relentless being right. No mercy. Butting heads or getting into a crash with Jupiter and Taurus. Trust, pleasure-seeking. Mars and Aquarius squaring Jupiter and Taurus. Makes me think of the friction between brute force and trust. Jupiter is uplifting and very connected to the idea of just trusting the universe, like your trust muscle. Trust that things are going to work out. It's Jupiter in an earth sign, so it's a little bit like trusting that things are going to work out is a very buoyant, uplifting idea. And Jupiter in an earth sign is going to be a little more rooted in practicality. And that versus Mars in Aquarius doing it with brute force, whether that's like the brute force of rules or standard operating procedures or ideals. There's some kind of friction there. And Jupiter is also gratitude. It's like the scary guys from Hellraiser appear while you're like blessing your dinner. You're doing like the dinner blessing. It's a square, so there's like some friction. It's better for Mars, but it needs to happen. Whatever this is, it's right. So invite the Hellraiser guys to the table, or since Mars has the upper hand, kind of you'll eat dinner later. Go tour their delightful world of horrors and see what you can get out of it. Tuesday is boring. I'm kidding. The moon in Libra trines Mars and trines Venus. So we're getting sort of an echo or a ping in a good way of Mars conjoining Venus last Wednesday. Wednesday is big. It makes this whole week big, and it makes like the whole week kind of being about the closing of cycles and the opening of new cycles in terms of how we communicate and what's in our heart and what we're making real. All those things together. And I really think, make a note of this point in the video, and when I'm done explaining Wednesday, rewind it. This week, everything happening on Wednesday. In the beginning, there was the word. Everything began with a word, speaking the intention that there be light, and then making the world real. So on Wednesday, we have Mercury conjoining the sun, making its exterior conjunction with the sun. We have Mercury conjoining Saturn, and we have the sun conjoining Saturn. And they all happen very quickly. And this is unusual and fascinating. And they all happen in very rapid succession. Mercury's exterior conjunction with the sun, or CAZIMI, that's the term in astrology for conjunction with the sun, connects us to a far-reaching vision in any sign. But in Pisces, this vision could be very far-reaching and far out. And if Saturn weren't here for this combination of aspects, the vision could be like maybe so far-reaching or idealistic that it doesn't have a chance of being made real, or it's just like a little too out there and it goes nowhere. It's Mercury's conjunction with the sun, but it's fallen Mercury, so it's the place where Mercury functions the least well. But the presence of Saturn in this combination of aspects takes the dreamer and gives her a little bit of grit and realism. So there's a great opportunity here to make use of whatever you're fantasizing about in the place in your chart, the area of life that Pisces coincides with for you. And if you don't know what that is, you can experience my course on how to read your own chart, which you can find at voyage.earth. So pay attention to the potentials that are orbiting around you currently and how you might reform your heart and mind to actually make them real in the short and long term. So Mercury combined with Saturn, they like each other very much. They work well together. One thing about Mercury and Saturn together, especially fallen Mercury with Saturn, is kind of like a, do you think I'm stupid like thinking, feeling like you're stupid. Saturn is the authority figure, and Mercury is just like the cute little helper who's like all about thinking and talking. So the sun just received Mercury, and the sun is like forgives and accepts everything. But Saturn is more of like the authoritarian. But this closing out of the Mercury-Saturn cycle is really big in terms of everything that happened over the holidays, like late November through mid-January. And it's like the grand finale of like, okay, this is what happened then. And now we're starting on a new Mercury-Saturn cycle. Mercury conjoins Saturn roughly once every year. Looking at how well Mercury and Saturn play together, you can look at the signs that Mercury and Saturn rule in the zodiac. And they are in trine with each other. Mercury rules Virgo, Saturn rules Capricorn, and those are both earth signs. Mercury rules Gemini and Saturn rules Aquarius. Those are both air signs. So they help each other. As a contrasting example, Mercury doesn't do well in Pisces and Sagittarius, and those are Jupiter's signs. And in relation to Mercury's signs, Jupiter's signs are either in opposition or square, so they don't play well. And Pisces and Sagittarius are both in different ways about like the grand vision or the great wholeness. And there are not a lot of like technical or hard details to be found in those places. There can be, but those ideas are not really about technicalities or hard details or having dots to connect. Anyway, so Mercury is conjoining Saturn, but in Jupiter's sign. So there is a little bit of that vagueness, and Mercury's not really functioning optimally. So back to Mercury and Saturn and how they combine. Saturn can benefit from Mercury's attention to detail. Mercury's messenger of the gods, so the big boss at the desk, or like the eccentric inventor, can both benefit. Both find conveyance, whether that's thinking and talking in messages or delivery of items or people or travel. Saturn's archetypes find those things very necessary and are greatly improved by like well-functioning Mercury stuff. And there's a weird hidden knot in all this where Saturn exalts in Libra, which is about one-on-one communication and also about managing the management of expectations. But Mercury-Saturn makes me think of Dr. Spock from Star Trek, just like kind of a nerdy goth. It is logical. So all this stuff is happening in Pisces, where Mercury is fallen. Anchor points to grab onto and connect are way less obvious. And Saturn is either Saturn's job in Pisces in relation to past transits is like judging and either eliminating or making real the stuff that has been happening with Neptune in Pisces since 2012 and the stuff that happened with Jupiter in Pisces in 2021. The Mercury-Saturn cycle pulls up like the analytics dashboard for this like Jupiter-Neptune stuff happening in Pisces and like, okay, what's the data and what can we do with it and what are we going to move forward with and what are we going to decide isn't working? What are we going to decide was like a crazy dream and it was like fun to think about? So it's like Mercury is generating a year-end report for Saturn. And it's like a year-end report because Mercury conjoins Saturn roughly once a year. But it's also about, it takes into account like year over year analytics and things that have been going on for a while. But since it's fallen Mercury, this like year-end, like the slide deck is like, it's in an impressionist painting style. It's not exactly like what you want to get down to the brass tacks. And so that's how like Saturn will kind of be like, are you stupid? Like Saturn's going to make Mercury feel kind of dumb. But this is what we have to work with. And this is what needs to happen. Like it's Mercury in Pisces. That's what's happening. It's the quality of the time. So what is required is the impressionist painting style analytics dashboard. It's the fuzzy logic version of the information we require. And why is it necessary that it be that way? Think about your situation and like why it's necessary that it not be like matplotlib, Mercury and Aquarius, precision, pandas. It's not as high fidelity, but there's a lot of information to be had. You just have to use your noggin a little bit differently. And I think this is a great time time to point out, especially with Stable Diffusion 3 having been released, that the AI model that you use to generate images from prompts is called a diffusion model. Okay, so in the beginning there was the word. Now you don't have to rewind it. Also, in the middle of the night, so Thursday, in the wee hours, we get Mercury sextiling Jupiter. So we have Jupiter rules Pisces. So all of the stuff happening in Pisces is also governed by the part of your life that is Taurus. And Jupiter wanting to make that place great and do the dinner blessing and all of that. So Mercury connecting with Jupiter, being it's stepping around, going above the manager. Mercury is going behind the manager's back and talking to the CEO, Jupiter, and they agree on stuff. And the rest of Thursday is just kind of about how the moon is going past and also blessing everything that happened on Wednesday. So we have the moon trining Saturn, trining the sun, because they're all together, opposing Jupiter, trining Mercury, and also squaring Mars. But we'll just sweep that under the rug. I mean, no, we won't. So the moon in Scorpio opposing Jupiter is the least worst. It's the least worst fallen moon. And then since everything else is sort of the moon manifesting, remember the moon's the activator of the zodiac, the moon manifesting all the Wednesday stuff. The other thing, the moon squaring Mars. So the moon, so now when the moon's in Scorpio, it's squaring Mars for the next while. And that's kind of the moon works for Mars. It's not a very good worker for Mars, but it's here to get the weird body piercings that the weird Hellraiser guys want to get and be trussed up on the meat hooks. And that's what it has to do. And it's not fun, but it needs to happen. And Mars is the boss of the moon on Thursday and Friday. So on Friday in the wee hours, so this is closing down on Thursday also. On Friday during the wee hours, we have the sun's annual closing sextile with Jupiter. And this is getting ready for the sun's annual conjunction with Jupiter, which will be during Taurus season, which will be in the late spring, early summer. And it will happen at the end of Taurus. So it's kind of also a grand finale of Jupiter's transit of Taurus, because Jupiter moves into Gemini shortly after that. So this closing sextile, it's not it's the sun sextile Jupiter, our heart and mind connecting with that sense of optimism, and it's material, practical, sensual optimism with Jupiter and Taurus. But I mention it to note the Jupiter Sun cycle, which is this third phase is getting the recognition for everything you've made good on. So there's the synodic cycle, which is the relationship with the sun of planets, is kind of three phases. The first phase, which is after the conjunction, it's opening a new Jupiter cycle, sort of a new moon, but with Jupiter. That's the optimism and new opportunities or blessings or good things that come that are kind of lucky you. Maybe you just got lucky, or maybe you're getting recognized in advance for potentials, and so that's inspiring. And then Jupiter's retrograde phase is and that's when Jupiter's trining the sun, is you need to make good on those blessings you received, and you have to kind of put your nose to the grindstone and use that wind at your sails to do God's work. And then the closing out is getting recognition for that, real recognition after what you have done and according to what you have done, and maybe with a little something extra, because it's Jupiter, it's not Saturn. So the closing sextile means that we only have, we're on the last section. The sun makes no more traditional aspects with Jupiter until the conjunction. So think about last year, what's the story that kind of opened around April 11th of last year, 2023. So what does Jupiter rule in your chart? Where is Jupiter in your chart? Whatever happened, whatever cycle opened in April of 2023 and is closing next May, this is like the final section of that. So like, it's like the home stretch. So that happens early morning on Friday. Friday is the moon opposes Uranus and trines Neptune. Weird art. Make it or experience it. Thursday. Saturday, the moon moves into Sagittarius. All that happens on Saturday is the moon moves into Sagittarius early in the morning and also in the morning/late morning, depending on where you are. I guess it could be absolutely any time, depending on where you are. I'm broadcasting from the United States. The moon moves into Sagittarius and makes what I'm calling the Neuralink aspect, which is moon in Sagittarius sextiling Pluto in Aquarius. So the sign that is about the melding of human with a tool or another being is making a beneficial connection with Pluto in Aquarius, which I talked a lot about at the beginning of the video. And again, it's Pluto opposite Leo's sign. So just the idea of recognition at all is undergoing profound changes. And with the great dispossession happening with all the layoffs, now we have everybody creating a personal brand, everybody being a Leo. And so all these Leos, it's so much Leo that it becomes Aquarius. Which brings me to Sunday, early in the morning on Sunday. So this is applying all day Saturday. Venus is applying to a square with Uranus. And for this, I just think on that note of Pluto in Aquarius opposing Leo stuff. Venus in Aquarius, squaring Uranus in Taurus. Solidarity versus individuality. It's like, come to the Zoom party. If you don't, we'll think you're stuck up. But really, you just want to by yourself work on your extravagant chicken coop architecture that you've been building. Sunday is kind of grating, but I think it could be productive. Some days that I've talked about in the past are like, just watch a movie and chill. Sunday is like, I think you can there are like beneficial aspects with Mars and a square with Mercury and a sextile to Venus. So busy. Sunday's busy. It goes on your wall. It has all the aspects listed. You want it. You had 10 months. So my body nerd stuff is at Beauty Grease, and I also made a thing called Skincare Zodiac, which is a 7-page guide for each sign of the zodiac with strategies for how to step into a radically different type of skincare, because I think that term is weird and doesn't really mean anything, because your skin is about what's going on inside your body. And remember, your Wi-Fi is a camera that can see through walls.